So as the infrastructure
Yeah.
for connectivity grows in Africa, I would say the biggest opportunity here is, can we own the infrastructure for a decentralized future of technology that has more robust value than the current models that makes us only consumers.
So when I look at Africans as a whole, I said to myself, what do we own? And this is why part of the reason why I decided to build Helico.
There's so many of us, but we're so disconnected because we don't know about each other.
And so saving is just it's a losing game, right? The only thing that you can save your money into is Bitcoin. We're at a stage where the technology bypasses the government, right? So
Yeah.
we no longer need to wait. I think people are waiting too much on institutions and the government to do something, and they don't realize they never will. We need to have a different monetary vehicle that we're trading our time for, right? The current monetary
Yeah.
vehicle is not a savings vehicle. It diminishing returns, and we get paid very, very little when traded against other currencies.
Our best educated, our brightest minds are attracted to outside like opportunities, because the opportunities and the solutions we need right now are ugly.
This is the Mooncast.
See you, Space Cowboy.
Yo, man. First and foremost, man, it's finally good. I know we've been trying to do this for what, like 2 weeks now, right?
Yeah, it's been yeah, it's been
Yeah,
quite
it's been a
challenging,
minute.
man. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
hey, better late
So
than never.
yeah, but never late is better.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, yeah. But bro, man, it's really good again, like I said, to for you to hop on. Welcome to the Mooncast, man. I'm excited to have this conversation with you because Fian told me a lot of really good stuff about you. And can you just introduce yourself a little bit to the audience to let them know who you are, what you're about, how long you've been in the Web3 space, and etc.
Yeah. My name is Victor Muhagachi. I'm really excited to be here. Feel like a space baby because, I feel I've been in the Web3 space for, I'll say, 4 years now and counting. It's
Yeah,
been quite a journey, and yeah, just based in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. But right now I'm in Dodoma, hometown. This is where I was born and raised, so I'm back home for this podcast. So it's quite exciting to see everything around me, and like it's like everything has been like a surreal moment, seeing the journey I've been so far. Yeah, so yeah, I'm a builder. I like solving problems and finding solutions that are natively real to my environment and who I am and where I'm from. So I think that's why Web3 attracted me the most. And yeah, so been exciting building projects here, trying to find the intersection between Web2, Web3, and real world use cases. That's kind of like my niche. And I'm part of a team of great builders based here in Tanzania and East Africa. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about what I do and be in this space. Thank you so much for inviting me, even though it was quite challenging to connect on times, but I'm glad this is happening.
yeah, me too, bro. Can you walk me through your journey of how you found the Web3 industry? Because everybody's journey is so unique. And can you
Yeah.
just, if you could, share your journey of what got you intrigued about Web3 and passionate about it to want to jump in full time and get into this space and attack it?
My friend David introduced me to Web3. We've been working together, like we've been friends making music. So I used to have a studio in Dar es Salaam. I used to make content and like just things that I'm passionate about. And then that led us to kind of making software around music production, and we were
Yeah,
creating a streaming platform to sell music using like Tanzanian shillings. So at the time, this was like 2018. We didn't have iTunes, or Spotify was not a thing in my country. So
yeah,
my friends and I came together. We're like, okay, let's make a music platform so we can share the music we make, and then so that's how our passion for tech started. So started building that product. It was a fail because just understanding like the culture here and how people do things. So that kind of like started our journey into making products. And then from that, my friend David was studying in China at the time. And then he was like, hey, he came back to Dar es Salaam, was like, hey, you should check out Web3. He was a contributor at Prime DAO. And I was like, hey, you should really jump into this world and trying to figure it out. So from there, this was back in 2019, beginning of 2020. That's when we started building M Tunes, and then from it started like the passion of like understanding like, okay, what solutions can we bring in that space. Then I started contributing at like Web3 like products, and that's kind of like how I started. And then I was just fascinated by the rabbit hole of like, okay, what is this? What does it do? Um, yeah, and then it's quite funny the things I was doing back then that felt impossible. I ended up to do being the things I'm working on today. So we always have this aha moments like, oh, like remember we used to talk about this and now we're building it. So my journey started from trying and building and contributing and DAOs until yeah, now I'm like I have my own DAO and I have products in Web3 space.
That's crazy, man. Because usually a lot of people they end up joining the Web3 space from the investor perspective. So
Mm.
that's interesting that you started more from the builder perspective of how can I contribute, how can I add value, how can I build something that's useful for an entire community or to push the space forward. So it is very much of an interesting journey. Do you invest too as well into Web3 products, or do you just mainly only just build and try to solve problems in the Web3 space?
I say I mainly build because I think I look at Web3 different than most people around me.
Hmm.
I would say, fortunately, I have not. I mean, apart from like some coins here and there, like maybe trading Bitcoin. Apart from that, I don't really actively invest. I build and contribute in other projects. If I find a project industry interesting, I mean, I've I contribute in it. I in terms of my skill set, and yeah, I've built a couple products that have become successful. And then like off the bat, I started like, what product can I have on my own? And then this is like a partnership I have with some friends. We started Chatterfisher. This is like from the early on. We were like, can we use blockchain and leverage its potential to have use case for it? So
Yeah.
that's mainly what I do. Investing side, maybe in a couple years, one of our products might take off, and then we might bring more people and invest in their products and show them like, hey, this is how we use web blockchain per se, and the Web3
Yeah.
space to add value.
Did you have prior technical knowledge and technical expertise before you got into the Web3 space and started building?
Not coding wise. I only had like product building. So I've been fortunate enough to, like I said, I worked on an app before with a friend of mine. That was based on the studio we had. So that knowledge of like creating product, and that's what I brought to the Web3 already. And I'm good at like strategizing and product management, and just literally how do you make things make sense. I think that's my strongest suit. Like I find I can break like a complex idea into a starting point and create a product and revenue model or business case around it. That's the skill set I brought to Web3, and I think that's what I leverage, and they help me see like the door around like what can we use like blockchain for. And I think for me that gave me a whole different perspective than most people come in the space. So I'm grateful about that. Worked with some agencies, launched some products here, not Web3 products, just regular products, but they really helped me to see, okay, what's the missing link in the market, and what can we use blockchain for. So that's kind of been like that's the knowledge I brought in. So no technical background in terms of like knowing Rust or smart contracts or anything like that. These are things I learned as I started building and innovating in the space. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, what would you say to somebody that, because a lot of people, they think to get into the Web3 space, you have to have technical expertise. You need to have a computer science degree. You need to have a master's in computer science. So what would you say to somebody that's trying to look into getting into the Web3 space and doesn't know where to start? And how would you direct them into the right path that they should take? Like, what steps do you think they should take to be able to find what works for them in that specific niche within the Web3 space? Because there's so many verticals.
man, I love the question. Um I would say there's two things I would say. Web3 will find you, or get curious. I'm very much in the spirit of like find a problem that you want to solve, that you're curious about, and what you like. Because when you fundamentally know this, it's easy to know how you come in on a Web3. Web3 is just like a technology, like any other technology. It by itself doesn't solve a problem, but it's
Yeah.
fundamental, and the reason why it's there is what you can leverage to find the problem that you want to solve as a person. So I'll always say, if you're a curious person, there's something you can do or contribute in the Web3 space. But understanding what specifically draws you into it is very important, because you can fall into the speculation aspect, or you can fall into the get rich quick scams, which I think miss out the point of like decentralization and what this whole space has to offer. So this fundamental understanding of like, okay, what do you care? Why do you care about technology? And what makes you curious about it? So then you can start understanding the high level ideas around this, and you can know, okay, where do I come in? There's definitely so many entry points, like you've asked me, like, did I come in as an investor or a builder? You see, there's like so many ways you can come into this space, but it's only natural to you to know, okay, what need do I have? So this can help you come in quickly, or like in a way that makes sense to you at the level you're at. Because it's not about expertise, about, okay, what is this technology trying to solve, and what it is, and what is it? I mean, so when you come in, you find resources at every level, and then be careful you don't get into a cultish movement, because there's definitely a vibe around that in the Web3 space. So stay curious and innovate according to the need that you have around you, and I promise you, you'll find a solution that Web3 will solve in your own niche. And some of it is just maybe investing in the right direction in digital assets and the digital economy, because that's where the world is going anyway. So I would say get curious so you can learn more, and you can always find like a place for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I truly believe, I repeat this over and over again when I talk to people, when I hop on podcasts, when I'm talking to my online communities. I tell them that we are at the
Mm,
exponential growth phase of technological advancements. And whether that
Facts.
be in the Web3 space, whether that be in robotics, whether that's augmented reality, virtual reality, AI, you need to be able to understand that this is the future and you need to find your footing within this future. Otherwise, you're going to miss this wave, because the last tech boom or the last wave in the Web 2 space, a lot of people missed out on the Fivers, they missed out on the Upworks, they missed out on the Gmails, they missed out on the social media platforms like Facebook and Instagrams and TikTok and etc. So when you
Yeah.
look at this space, and you see how fast it's moving, how do you keep up currently right now with current market trends?
I say, like, I just add what you said. Like, it's like I'll say, I don't try to keep up, because I don't. It's something that grows exponentially. You can't keep up with it. You want to
Yeah,
like, because you'll just be jumping off things here and there. I'll say,
yeah,
what are you actually trying to solve? What gets you curious about this space? So then it's not, because I think this space is for everybody. What I see as the greatest innovation around Web3 or blockchain is the ability of having decentralized infrastructure that are immutable, that we can leverage, and then they don't necessarily compete with the current models, but they enhance them in a sense of like, you have more robust security, you have more like ownership around the infrastructure that you can build on. So instead of you looking at the trend, look at where you can leverage. And I think as an African speaking, this is the one thing we don't have. We don't have leverage in technology, and I think
yes,
even blockchain has not unlocked this yet to the fullest potential. So I would say, instead of keeping up with the trend, keep up with the opportunities of leveraging ownership in a technology that you can participate on early on. Like I started running a collator node at my place where I was staying in Dar es Salaam, where I had like just a Dell computer. I was part of the Kusama. Like we had a community currency running, and I'm using this example to show like, hey, imagine if we had all just simple computers connected together in your neighborhood. Only thing that's stopping us back is the internet infrastructure, and this is going to change. It's going to evolve so much. So as you're as you're leveraging this innovations that is happening, think of it as how a town grows. Like I come back, like I mentioned, I was in my hometown, like bro, and I tell you, when I lived here, there was nothing, bro. Our house was the only house in the middle of nowhere. Now there's like a whole like paved road around me. There's houses, apartments. I'm like, this is less than 10 years. So
Yeah,
I would say the biggest like misconception people have, they want to jump on the train in front of it instead of like, hey, can I lay down the tracks, because this train is gonna come here anyway. So don't jump on the train in
yeah,
front. Like, uh, just be a passenger. Figure out where you're trying to go, and then the tracks are always gonna be there. And luckily enough, we're in a technology where we can set the tracks. So as the infrastructure
yeah,
for connectivity grows in Africa, I would say the biggest opportunity here is, can we own the infrastructure for a decentralized future of technology that has more robust value than the current models that makes us only consumers? And that's the value I see, you know. So at that level, I would say come in like that. As a participant, I would say come in as a curious mind and have skill sets that you can contribute in. And it's not about the trend, it's about how good can you get so you can get the most value in these spaces.
yeah. Absolutely. You mentioned a lot there. One thing that I want to add on to what you said was about the inability of us being able to have ownership, and this sort of industry, Web3, it gives us that opportunity to be able to get a piece of ownership. And this again why I decided to build Helicode with Fian, right? Because in my head
Yeah,
I thought, okay, what do we own, right? When you look at the landscape of, the entire geopolitical and macroeconomic landscape, right? The Chinese, they have the manufacturing. The Indians, they run a lot of the outsourcing for IT. You know,
yeah,
so when I look across the board and I ask myself, what is it? You look at the Jews; they own the banking infrastructures and a lot of the real estate properties in the U.S. Right. So when I look at Africans as a whole, I said to myself, what do we own? And this is why part of the reason why I decided to build Helicode too as well, which I think Fian has kind of told you what we're building, and it
quite
made sense for
incredible.
me because yeah, yeah, because it made sense for me because in my head I'm like, okay, if we can train Africans on Web3 hard skills and then leverage them to majority of Web3 companies at the cheapest possible market rate, then we could take the entire market and we can control the Web3 labor market completely. And on top of that, another thing I want to add on is this idea of decentralized infrastructure, which is what I'm currently right now. I'm probably going to package this into a podcast, a solo podcast, talking about the idea of Web 4, right? Because people are still on Web 3, but I'm thinking about mesh networks, right? So mesh networks will completely give us full autonomy over our internet infrastructure because we still don't have full autonomy over our internet infrastructure. So if we can decentralize in a meshed network, maybe even leveraging Bitcoin nodes, right? Something like this, we would be able to communicate and have our own communication channels that are separate from the actual internet infrastructure itself. So I don't know what you think about that specifically, but these are just some of the ideas that come to mind when I think about how we can take back control and sovereignty over our lands. Imagine 10xing your earnings capacity to 100K per year while working remotely at the comfort of your own home. We are in the exponential growth phase of technological advancements. That means AI, AR, VR, robotics, and of course, Web3 technologies taking over the job market. At Helicode Academy, we train students on Web3 hard skills and link them to employment in the job market. Find out more at helicode.xyz. And as always, see you, Space Cowboy.
Dude, I'm so happy you mentioned that, because that's part of the one of the initiatives I'm doing here in Tanzania. I was just writing chat a website for a DPN infrastructure for
Yeah,
like decentralized mesh networks to provide internet. Um, it's any what you just said resonates with me so much, and I think this is the future. I liked what you said about Web 4. That's a very very clever way to put it, and it's a movement. You know, honestly, this is the opportunity that we have, and I think that when a lot of people don't understand what it takes to actually have ownership in this space, the investment that's needed, and why do we even do this? I think one thing as Africans we don't ask why, because we're bombarded with the idea of becoming consumers. And I really appreciate what you guys are doing. When I was talking to Fino, it was like amazing to see like what you guys, the labor, the human capital, like investment is what you guys are doing. Like if you can invest in the youngest population that we have in Africa, all across the continent, you're in the West, I'm in East, but we're relating. Like this is the there's so many of us, but we're so disconnected because we don't know about each other, and we're competing with spaces in the world that are so connected, and then we're hoping to compete in the same way. I think our biggest like down drawback is the borders that we have. The internet can allow us to break these borders. Now, what infrastructure do we need in place to break this border? It's more like a radical movement that needs to happen. I'm so happy you mentioned like the different nationalities and how they leverage their potentials they had. What is the potential for Africa? We have a lot of natural resources, from abundance in like the sun energy that we can leverage, to the people that we have, to the natural resources that we have to leverage on these things. Now, I don't want to go too much on that. Just to stay on topic, I'll say what we try to do. I have created something called Dunia Yetu, which is our world in Swahili. Um, so it's kind of like the same idea of, can we have a decentralized infrastructure, nodes like computers that can create a mesh network, and then we can bring the internet cost to even $1 a month. This technology is available today. We can do this today, but that investment, that movement needs to be sparked by people like what you guys are doing, like me, like building in this space, not to be consumers, not to be like contributors in some blockchain, some chain that's innovating, but what infrastructure mechanisms can we have? And I think um, now, just this is me wishful thinking. We need to build data centers that leverage solar energy, because that's going to be the next future that we have. We have an abundance of sun source energy. We have an abundance of natural resources for hydro in terms of power, because computational capacity needs a lot of energy. And if we can solve this problem, Africa is at the forefront of solving this. It will solve us the cost, the barrier of entry to the technology is still very high in Africa. If we bring this cost down, then it's easy for people to learn like skills like coding, skills like building products, skills like decentralized computing for machine learning and all these things that then we can leverage, because I believe AIs and this natural language for computing is the future of operating systems. So then when when as advanced as they get in this exponential curve that we're in, the entry level for you interacting with a machine becomes so low. Anybody can talk with natural language with a computer and start innovating in this space. But what infrastructure is in place to allow people to do this? This is the deep end space that we need to get into. Now, I agree with you like a million percent, because I want that radical movement. I want us to get past the normal conversations and go to the really, really deep reasons of what do we need to do? We need to be vigilant. We need to be radical a bit, because we're so behind, and accepting this gives us power, because then we know where to start. We're like, okay, we're running a marathon. Everybody's like 10 laps ahead of us. So we don't need protein bars. We need real energy to kind of like supercharge our speed so we can catch up. And then catching up not in a way to keep up, but catching up in a way that how can we even find alternative routes that we reach? Because the good thing about this race is not an Olympic race where you have to go around in circles. You can go each direction, as long as you like. It's about sustaining the marathon, not winning the marathon. And I think Africans, our idea of development is sustaining, is keeping up with the rest of the world, and not creating an alternative view of this. Yeah, but I think I'm really excited about this. I shared the link with you. I would love for you to check it out and then see, okay, there's so many ways we can come in early and really innovate this
Yeah,
space. We don't have to wait. So, man, I resonate
yeah,
with this so much.
yeah. It's funny because a lot of people think that to get into the Web3 space, you need to, it's permissionless, right?
Yeah.
And that's the nuance that I think a lot of people don't really understand, is the fact that you can just go and just go build. Go build. No
Mm.
one is going to stop you, right? And you talk about, you kept mentioning this word consumers, right? I definitely agree with you that Africa does have a consumer problem, but I think it also stems from the currency mismanagement, which we, as we know, all fiat is BS anyways, right? But
Yeah.
and they mismanage the currencies across the board, irrespective of country, right? In the U.S. is even it's crazy, but it's just some currencies are inflating faster than others, right? What
Yeah.
I would say is when your currency is inflating at 100% per year, let's say in this case, the naira, well, it gives you a different mindset, right? You have more of a short-term thinking mindset because you have to then rush to get money and spend it immediately because you understand that literally the next month or the next couple weeks, the rate might be different than it was a couple weeks prior. Whereas when your currency is inflating slower, like the US dollar, it gives people, which they also have a consumeristic mindset too as well. So it may not even be a better example. Maybe a better example would be the euro. And if you look at
Yeah.
maybe like Germany, where they're a little bit more of savers and they have more of that saving habit. But
Yeah.
then
The
again,
pound as well.
you're yeah, the pound as well. But then again, you're saving in a currency that's still inflating, and so saving is just it's a losing game, right? The only thing that you can save your money into is Bitcoin, right? And so I think that that's one of the issues that I see on the continent is the fact that people haven't found a savings vehicle. Because if they had a savings vehicle, and if they understood that there's already a savings vehicle in the free market that already exists, it would make things more easier for people to be able to be more economical and bypass. Because this is my thought process, right? I think that we're at a stage where the technology bypasses the government, right? So
Yeah.
we no longer need to wait. I think people are waiting too much on institutions and the government to do something, and they don't realize they never will, right? The
Yeah.
probability is quite low, right? Let me just say that.
Yeah.
The probability is quite low that you're going to get a Ibrahim Traore or you're going to get a Nayib Bukele, from an election, right? Because
Yeah.
democracy itself, for me, democracy is just another word for every 4 years, corporations bid on who's going to serve their interest.
Yeah, that's a
That's
fundamental problem. Like in terms of leadership, you mentioned something very interesting. Like that's the
yeah,
biggest plague in Africa. We lack strong leadership to see real growth. And I think now we can peel so many layers to get to the reason why this is there. Maybe
yeah,
it's by design. Maybe it's also to leverage. Like something that you mentioned two things I would like to really, really also talk about was the saving part and how we depend on leadership and how this is inflation adds up to inflation and the psychology of now our relationship with value and money as we think about it also changes. So leadership is a big problem in Africa that it's founded from colonialization. And I was thinking about this like I don't think we can blame our leaders. Just stay with me on this. I look at my dad. My dad is like now like early 60s, first generation of colonization. So
mm,
to them, they grew up with no roads, nothing around them. So we've seen some progress in development. So when if I talk to my dad, I tell him there's no progress, he will look at me like, "Are you crazy? It used to take me 3 days to go to Dar es Salaam. It's like 1,000 kilometers. Now it will take him 2 hours if he flew there." To him, that's
yeah,
development. Now we have to ask this question for someone who's never had anything, what quality of development can you introduce to them for them to be satisfied? That actually not only meets their basic needs, but thinks about 100 years from now. Now, Africa has this problem because if you have zero, if I give you two, but you're actually worth 100, because you had zero, two will feel like a lot, but you actually
yeah,
deserve 100. So
yeah,
this is where the leadership comes in, and then you bring it down. Now we are copying even the idea of saving from like where like economies that are bigger than us, that we don't get to a chance to innovate because we're not matured enough to really see, okay, what is the mindset around saving for our people? Value do we create around them? So if our fiat currency devalues every time, what is the alternative for them? I think Africa
yeah,
should invest and not save. And then the returns they get from their investments is what their savings would do because naturally saving will never help them. So that part of saving and leadership combination comes into a play where what you said earlier that the permissionless infrastructure of technology can really help us make the connection between the quality of the development that we want, because now the permission is like how much do we allow ourselves. I'm just using the key like fundamental like ideology of blockchain. but not to break down, because I think sometimes blockchain can also be very dangerous in the sense of like decentralizing everything is not the solution, because when you look at things in Africa or most economies, even the democracy is naturally decentralized. You know, that's why you have local governments, you have municipal, you have this, but it's not accountable. The
Yeah.
structure is decentralized, but the people in it are not. They're centralizing power because they realize that's where the value is at. But if we put value in the real mechanism that allow us to grow, it becomes now a question of like, okay, at what level and quality do we want development or resources allocation evenly for people around us. Now, this is where the leadership comes in to even allow people to have options of saving and investment in the in value creation that is around them so they can participate in their own development, not a copy version of development. Because I'm pretty sure right now, and I can confidently say, if you stop any person like a generation above us and you ask them what is development, they'll paint you a picture of a Western country idea of development. Like, you know, they will mention a nice car, a nice house, needs met, but this is not really development. Africa has natural development in terms of quality of food, quality of relationships, quality of community.
Yes.
How do we incorporate this into an asset class that also adds value to an economical asset that we have? And I think this is where decentralized economy can come in, and the infrastructure for this is what can we advocate for this as a new generation coming in and understanding this value of technology, and not coming in, which I usually see a lot, like we're critical about a generation that to them, telling them they didn't develop, they'll look at you like, what do you mean? Because they're
Yeah.
brainwashed to think the idea of development is a particular style, a lifestyle. So we need to come in
Exactly.
with with a different mindset. So I totally agree with you, brother. Like I feel like this school of thought that we have is so new, but it's very, very careful. We need to be very careful how we introduce it, because we could miss out on a crazy opportunity to bring our people together, because we need this. We cannot deny that we need leadership, because a lot of our things will change if we have stronger leadership. But leadership is it's the people, you know, it's not a person. Leadership to me, when I think about it, is the ideology that the people represent, that a person in their community holds upon. They give like, hey, we're passing you this baton so you can lead us in this direction. It's not a person say, I have one, two, three. It's more like, hey, I want my people to have these conditions because they need this to thrive. And I'm gonna have the privilege as a leader to safeguard it and take care of it. But I feel like African leadership is more like, I did this for you, I'm doing this for you, I'm doing that for you, I'm helping you do this. And it's a mismatch, you know?
Yeah, you have to have a selfless approach when being a leader. And yeah, there's a lack of leadership, I think, globally, but specifically in Africa, you know, I think part of the so we've had good leaders, but then they ultimately end up perishing for whatever reason. Some, you could blame colonizers. Some could blame our own people. I think it's a combination of the two, and the mindset, right? But leadership,
Yeah.
I think the best form of leaders in societies, which I don't believe they're working at a governmental body, right? I think the best leaders are entrepreneurs, right? And this is where people like me and you come in, right? Because if I just told you that democracy, the current form, is every 4 years corporations bid on who's going to serve their best interest, then that means that democracy and the elections and politics itself doesn't matter, because the corporation is kind of in control. If the corporation is in control, we can conclude that, right? Me and you can conclude that the corporation is above the politician. Then the corporation is then a derivative, or we are a derivative of the corporation being an entrepreneur.
Just so I would say I'll disagree with that, but I agree with you everything. I'll say the
Tell me.
corporation is not in charge. It's brainwashing the people to take the power from them. Because I think the people have so much power than they think they do.
Yes.
But there's a scarcity of resources that make them dependent on corporation, and then the corporation in turn lead the government. Funny,
Yes.
today is the death of Mwalimu Nyerere. President of Tanzania, Julius Nyerere.
Yes.
So
Yes.
today is a national holiday in Tanzania, celebrating his life. Now, Nyerere had something very interesting introduced called Ujamaa. Ujamaa was a was a mix of socialism and Marxism. Ideology of like leadership was more like communism, but mixed with socialism to create a classless society. That was the idea
Hmm.
of Ujamaa, and this there's a resemblance of it to this day. To this day in Tanzania, that concept of Ujamaa, like communal, is very much present to this day. Some people think it's dangerous. Some people think it failed because at the time it was introduced, there were not enough people to kind of carry the baton and make it possible. But I believe it was if it was introduced today in let's say the 2000, the 20th century, it would have been one of the most innovative form of government that actually gives people ownership. The basic idea of it is socialism, but with the ability of education for self-reliance. So we work together, but it's your individual responsibility to take yourself out of poverty. But we are communal people and we put humanity first, the Ujamaa aspect, the communal aspect of ourselves. So as a Tanzanian, Tanzania is a melting pot of different tribes, different religions,
Hmm.
different people. We've never had a tribal war, we've never had a religious war. I can like go to a mosque and sit with my friends, and I'm a Christian. My dad's a pastor. I can go. My friend's dad is a imam. But I was just at it's like a wedding, and I was wearing like full on like kanzu. I had my own like my full attire, and it was normal. I was invited. I
Yeah.
did my dua with them, and that's the essence of Tanzania. And in it, there were Indians, there were Arabs, there were Palestinians. This is a melting pot. But what takes us apart is what you said: the institution creating scarcity, making us consumers, and
Yes.
forgetting our power. And the leverage is because our leadership, they've thought development is having these things that conditions that don't account for this. So what Ujamaa was trying to do was giving power to the people, but in a sense that you need to have a society, a nation, a state that has an ideology that safeguards its development. So then cooperative and initiatives understand this. This is how they interact with you. You know, now to
Yeah. Yeah.
introduce ideas like this is it's borderline almost impossible without having civil war, or
Yeah.
like dedication from like the people in charge to be like, hey, we're gonna uphold this. And I know America is a failed um I don't want to say it's a failed state, but it has a lot of problems that is crumbling inside. But they've done something very, very interesting. They
No, it's failed.
separated. You could say that, but you could also argue against it, because I'll say why. What America's done so great is separate the Federal Reserve from the state.
Yeah.
The Fed is very much separated from politics. Africa puts the economy with their politics, and this is very dangerous because whenever you have a stupid leader or like somebody who's not adhering to the values of the community, the economy also crumbles. Americas could have literally, no offense, like a puppet running the show, but the economy will always thrive because they've
Hmm.
separated the two. Now, Africa needs to
Yes.
adopt this model like yesterday. We need our central banks need to be independent bodies that work to bring employment, currency stability, and what else? Economics, currency stability, and innovation in terms of like society and in terms of like investing in infrastructure, human capital and
Yeah.
real infrastructure. And the government,
Yeah.
its only job is to maintain what conditions do we want to create for these people? So the economy is thriving, but at what conditions? That's the only job of the government. But right now, the job of the government in most African countries, it's bombarded with so many things. That's why they end up borrowing and doing a lot of things because a lot of our economics is tied into politics that is not driven for success, but mostly for dependency. And that's why we have natural like there's so much gold in Tanzania, but we don't have a gold reserve. Make it make sense.
Hey bro, I'm just trolling is something that will not just challenge your perspective, but also touch your heart and soul. It's a book that defies convention, blending art and literature into a thought provoking masterpiece. A reflective piece of provocative art that tackles societal constructs from angles you've never considered. Hey bro, I'm just trolling delves into the very essence of our existence. It questions the technology that surrounds us, challenges our notions of beauty, stares unflinchingly into the eyes of death, and questions the boundaries of freedom. It scrutinized the educational system that molds our very future. This book is a journey, an exploration of shared human experience, and it's a work of art that refuses to be confined by tradition. It's a canvas painted with words, a melody of thought, and a testament to the power of creativity in a world dominated by algorithms and data. Visit moonboycapitalventures.com and get your hands on Hey Bro, I'm Just Trolling today. It's not just a book, it's a movement. Now let's jump back into the show.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so
It doesn't. It doesn't. And I think part of it again, it ties back into the leadership and the or the lack thereof. And it's so obvious what needs to happen in Africa, right? Anybody
yeah,
with a peanut brain can see that you're supposed to. Oh, there's some birds outside.
the birds are agreeing with
But
what you're saying.
yeah, yeah, they agree. Yeah. So anybody with a peanut brain can see that you're supposed to nationalize your products, right? Your natural resources. You're supposed to then refine those natural resources and then ship those out and export them. We don't even have to export them out of the continent.
Yeah,
That's the crazy thing. You know, we can just export them within one another, but the problem is we're not working with one another. And again, this is why the technology is so important to bypass the slow and methodical systems that are currently holding us back. If I want to do business and sell something to someone in Kenya and I'm in Ghana, well, I don't have Kenyan shillings and you don't have Ghana cities. How do we transact, right? So it makes it hard. So that's why, again, I like Bitcoin a lot, where it's sort of it becomes that uniformly agreed upon medium of exchange that we can use and leverage. Like even here, um, I've bought land in Africa with Bitcoin, right? So
oh,
for
amazing,
me,
interesting.
yeah. I was shocked. I was like, oh, you take this, and they said yeah. So I said, all right, cool. So I just see us missing that because when I look at Europe, for instance, they have for the most part, one uniformly agreed upon medium of exchange in the euro, right? Obviously, there's nuance. There's the Swiss francs. There's the British pound. But for the most part, most people use one currency, right?
Yeah,
So it makes it easier because then now you got to deal with currency exchange, fees involved, logistics, financial logistics that you have to deal with, which makes it hard, right? And also, you can drive from Portugal all the way to Bulgaria in Europe, right? You can't
yeah,
drive from Nigeria to, let's say, the Congo, right, without having issues, because there's a lot of checks, and maybe you need to bribe some people some money, and et cetera. The road networks may not be there. So these are some of the bottlenecks that we face, I think, as a continent. But again, I think the technology itself it becomes that steroid, if you will, to
yeah,
supersede a lot of things and increase the exponential growth phase of business within Africa, right? And this is why I'm so
yeah,
adamant about teaching about blockchain technology, how it can be used and leveraged for just even small things like payments. So when my students get the skill set of, let's say, smart contract coding or cybersecurity, and then they get paid or linked to a multinational, global, or whoever, et cetera, and they finally get paid, they pay them in crypto. So it makes it easy for them to liquidate. And then they could take that crypto and move it around easily and easily swap it into wherever country that they're in. So while they sort out the actual, the top, there's already a nuanced approach that you can take to be able to facilitate payments and make things more streamlined. So these are things
yeah,
that I think about to help things move quicker, because when you get your money quicker and you get your money cheaper with a less of a cost basis, because to transfer USDT is very few cents. To transfer Bitcoin is maybe a dollar or two. So if we can make it, and if you're doing it on the Lightning Network, right, then it's less than a penny, right? So if we can implement these sort of strategies into the payment mechanisms and vehicles, and also if a lot of Africans can get paid in what would be the equivalent of like USD and USDT or in Bitcoin, it's more advantageous for the African liquidity wise. And this is another issue that I see is the fact that there is a lot of economic productivity here. There's actually more economic productivity here than there is in the West. I promise you that.
a
I've
hundred
been around, I've
percent
traveled,
agree.
yeah,
I
I've
agree
traveled
with
to
you
over
a
20
thousand
different
percent.
countries. So the issue isn't productivity. That's the, so that's what I came. So if the issue is not productivity, I had to figure out what the actual issue. And this is what made me go down a rabbit hole to understand what money is, which I ended up later on putting a 3-part series on what is money principles to my students, because I realized that the money itself is the problem. We don't have full control over our monetary policies throughout the entire continent.
Yep.
And so if we can either A, which I don't even like this option of repurposing the monetary policy into, let's say, a natural resources. I don't even like that idea because it comes with counterparty risk, right? Still,
Yeah.
so I like the idea of Bitcoin more. Some people maybe might be against it. I think it's the best strategy to use and the quickest to onboard, but we need to have a different monetary vehicle that we're trading our time for, right? The current monetary
Yeah.
vehicle is not a savings vehicle. It diminishing returns, and we get paid very, very little when traded against other currencies. So that's again
Yep.
why I built this academy, is so that we could figure out a way in which we could leverage the human capital to then facilitate higher pay with adequate skill sets that are on demand needed right now in the marketplace. So instead of you getting paid $200 a month, now you're getting paid $2,000 a month, $5,000 a month, which is still cheaper than what the company or corporation would have paid if they would have hired a smart contract developer for 10K, for 15K per
Yeah.
month, right?
So then I'll ask you a question there. Why do we, if we can, what about the quality? Because I think if I am a good engineer enough, like state at the best, like I'm at the par. Why should I get paid less just because I'm in Africa? You know, just
Yes.
because it's
Yeah.
cheaper. So so I'll
That's a go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
no, I want to hear your thoughts on that because I like your train of
Yes.
thought on.
Yes. Yes. So my thought process is there's already bad branding, right? So
Yeah.
because the branding is bad, and I'm telling you, hey, I'm going to leverage Africans to be able to build your product, they're going to be a little bit hesitant. So in my head, I was like, okay, but what if I can deliver the same level of quality at a 50% less expense charge
Yeah.
for you, right? And then you see the quality is good, and as the brand credibility builds, and you see and you can showcase, hey, look, I've been able to deliver now, let's say 1,000 people to get hired, and look at the reviews. I have a 4.7 or 4.8 stars out of 5. So you see the reviews are really good on the website, because I will put the company will be able to do reviews to see if they got what they were asking for, if the problem was solved at an
Yeah.
adequate level with good quality. And once we've built our credibility up, because remember, to be able to command that, we don't have the branding or the marketing of Dubai. We don't have the branding or marketing of an America. We don't have the branding or the marketing of a Switzerland yet. So how do we build the
Yeah.
credibility? So we have
Hmm.
to we have to take lesser pay, but it's still much higher than what you would get if I'm able to 10x your monthly salary from $200 to $2,000. That would more than enough suffice you to sustain not only your family but your extended family, right? In a lot of
Yeah.
African countries, right?
You're so right, but then that's the double-edged sword that we're struggling with, because
Yeah,
I see that I agree with you 100% because we need that credibility, but then at the same time, this is the I would say the virus that's eating a lot of Africans because whenever we our best educated, our brightest minds are attracted to outside like opportunities because the opportunities and the solutions we need right now are ugly, you know
yeah,
so if we do work for other people because they'll pay us more, we will do more work for them because we obviously survival, we'll get better payments, better everything, but then subsequently we admire them subconsciously and attribute to be like these economies that are advanced than ours. So when our brightest minds are leveraging their current value to work for them, our ugly jobs are neglected or are done poorly at a lower quality because the only people available to doing it are the people who don't have enough skill sets or are not as good. I think we need to introduce, which is, it might be wishful thinking, because I always struggle with this, man. and I don't know how deep I can get in this podcast because
You can
I
get as
can
deep
be
as you
very
want. This podcast is for that.
okay. We're
This
going to the
podcast is
moon
for
now.
that.
Let's okay. Let's
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
Let's go
yeah.
out of space. Let's go out of space. It's gonna be hard
Straight
to
up.
breathe now. Very suffocating.
Straight up.
The dangerous ideologies that are in Africa is the dependency that we're made on the value that we can create with our natural resources, right? So
Yeah.
look at look at even myself. I'm a Tanzanian. Majority of my time is spent speaking English. Now, what does that do
Yes.
to my thought process? It makes me think like a Western a bit. So
Exactly.
my speed, things I need around me, the quality at what I want them, the experience I can get. Now with social media and exposure of globalization, I'm exposed to a quality of life that is not locally mine. So as a
Yes.
human being, when my basic needs are met, my secondary needs are gonna be admiring to the quality of the rest of the world. Like if I wanna go out,
Yeah.
if I wanna go hang out with my friends, if I want to go to the hospital, I am expecting to get the same treatment as if I was as what I'm seeing on my phone. So
Yeah.
what tends to happen with this, if my environment cannot afford this to me, like all over the places, niches are created. That these sub niches create sub ideologies that are not natural to that area. So what tends to happen, the
Correct.
brightest, the greatest minds navigate to these sub niches and they neglect the rest of the country. And then we come to the conditions where the rest of our people are put in this lower bar so they can become workers. The talking about the road infrastructure, coming back to what we were talking about earlier, this is why we have these problems because to solve infrastructural problems, to solve inequality in economy problem, it's an ugly business. Who's
Yeah.
willing to get down and dirty to solve these problems? Not the brightest minds, because they went to Harvard, they've seen New York, they've been in a Benz, they want the drop down coupe. You want to
Yeah.
tell me
Yeah.
I should go live in a village where there's no roads, bro? No, and I have YOLO on my hashtag, and you telling me to put that to the side, all the beautiful girls like nightlife and
Yeah.
go struggle.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
this is the problem that faces a modern African, an identity crisis, where you have
Yeah.
a modern world reality where you can have the rest of the world at a fingertip and the reality of where you are. So
Yeah.
you get this in between us that create conditions that illusions of like a facade. And this is all over Africa. When you go to down mega cities, you go to any city that's developed in Africa, you'll find a westernized, colonized version of it that the brightest minds that gravitate towards. And then you have the poverty, the rural areas. Now,
Yeah.
our job and the government of our people, like our job is to build in the village to bring resources to the city. But we do the opposite. We build in the city to get out. But you know why cities are developing Africa? Because that's the ports. Look at all the major
Yes.
ports, major exportation places. They're the most built in
Yes.
Africa to take things out because our
Exactly.
value creation is an extraction. Now,
Yeah.
are we ready to have those ugly conversations of like, hey, we actually ain't shit. We are
Yeah.
so behind because look at the rest of the world. Europe innovated in the 1800s, 1700s. Um, America did the same. Asia did the same. But there's no point in
Okay.
modern
Wait.
history.
Wait. But how did Europe innovate? What was happening?
Slavery,
So this is
slavery.
what I want
No,
to.
no.
Yeah. So I'm like,
But
yes, yes, but we didn't use, we're not using slave. So here's where I have to. I was on par with what you were saying up until that point, right? We can't really
mm,
compare the European development to Africa because they leveraged colonialism and slavery to be able to deliver what they have today, right? That is
yeah,
that
but
is
the
that is a
but
reality.
then that is true. Now, the reality for us is the same. We cannot expect for us to develop if we don't want to do the nitty gritty work at that level. Because you
True.
look at Europe themselves, they leverage. If you look like a Timbuktu history of like really ancient Africa, we were
Yeah.
civilized in that particular area,
Oh, I know.
but
I know.
we did not innovate. We adapted. We did not grow. And I think this is because there's never a point in modern history where Africa's been by itself. Like you can trace back to any book you can find, most of them that are modern. We're not alone. China did this in the 40s. They isolated themselves to the rest of the world and then they supercharged.
Yeah.
Africa, and most African countries never locked down. That we never locked in, and like, okay,
Yeah.
no nothing. We're gonna die of hunger if we can't get our own food. That is the type
Yeah.
of radicalism we need. But we unfortunately we live in a world where we can't do this. It's impossible.
It
So this is us
it's starting.
like,
It is happening though. If you look at the Sahel states, Traore just said that he's going to do that, right? So
yeah,
I like their approach of the Sahel states and what they're doing over there with Niger, Mali, and Burkina. So it
yeah,
is happening. In some, like if you look at Botswana, they just use their diamond resource to be able to build what they. Botswana is really developed. Botswana
yeah,
is
it
on
really is.
par to me to most of what people would consider Western standard, right? But in terms of development, they're really on par, and they've used and allocated their resources properly and redistribute them to the people, right? They reinvested it back into the people. They even have monthly stipends for people who go to school, right?
Wow,
So they pay
amazing.
people like $100 to $150 a month to go to school in Botswana. It's crazy, but so they've figured a lot of stuff out. So there is country. The problem with Africa is again, it's not we're not organized. So one
Yeah,
country's doing it, another country's not doing it, and then we're not leveraging. Instead of maybe this country has the resource, we're gonna look to outside externals to be able to facilitate that resource that we could just get from our brother and sister. And
yeah,
so unity is a huge issue. You're talking about the nitty and gritty. How was the nitty and gritty done in Europe? They used slaves, right? So
yeah, but
so when
not
you
not
look
for
at
all of
that,
it. Not for all of it. Like, yeah, majority of it, I would say. But then you look at some
yes,
of it, they had to like, because we use slavery to this day. I think we want to play the righteous card sometimes as Africans. This
yeah,
is why I agree with you in terms of democracy is actually a facade to keep a lot of African countries and like global South countries at bay, so they don't really grow
exactly,
to the rate they should be. Because you can't tell me today you want us to change after 5 years, and I might get like this might be one of the most controversial things I say. You can't expect a country to change with leaderships of 5 years changes. You can't. That is a
you can't.
management system. That is not a development system. That's a system you develop after you've had like America, Europe. They can afford
Yeah,
this luxury of changing leadership because they're maintaining the fabrics of their community and what
yeah,
they've already built. We need a strategy. We need like communism to a sense, and a mixture of communism, democracy, and ujamaa and socialism together to get to a point where we can now say like, okay, guys, I think we're at a point where we can have democracy. And this is one of the hardest things to swallow. We don't even, like, it's about getting deep. The suffocation is coming in. We cannot innovate fully because we don't even own the rights to our air defenses. Like, we cannot
I know.
protect ourselves from an invasion. Like, if
Yeah,
Africa today was attacked, if Tanzania today was attacked, there's very little we can do because we can see like what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Lebanon with Israel
yeah,
and Iran. Like, the warfare has changed. Like, modern warfare
yeah,
is very different. It's not I'm gonna land in your land and go in and attack. It's like
yeah,
I'm gonna hit you with drones first, and then whatever's
yeah,
left, I'm gonna come pick up the crumbs. Now, is
yeah,
Africa ready? Do we have missiles defenses? Can we even own that technology? Can we even have do we even have the right to innovate to that capacity? Because the point of a state is protection. Now, we
yeah,
don't have the ability to even protect ourselves. So that's why we're stagnant in growth because why would you grow if you can't protect what you've built? You see?
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
are we ready
You're
to have
absolutely
the
right.
so that's why I think subconsciously we're not even developing fast because we know that like you would if you can build if you can protect what you build, you build even to the greatest heights because you
Yeah,
know I can protect this. But when you know, even if you build the best utopia, one day some guy can press a button and end you. It kills that motivation to build even if you don't think about it like as a society, but it's somewhere. I think humans are very intelligent beings. They have a
yeah,
collective consciousness that allows them to grow or even stay stagnant because you can feel fear naturally that can stagnate you. So I wonder if we maybe need to um soup like we need to brainwash our people to do positive things the same way we're brainwashed to do negative things. And
yeah,
I think this mass, I call it brainwash for the lack of better term, is very, very much a critical element of our super chat. I think what's holding us back is our ideology. And that's why I believe blockchain and this technology is there to be leveraged for this particular point. But it by itself will not survive if we don't like preserve it or use it like strategically to set up infrastructure and conditions that allow our people to participate in their own self-development, not our ideas of development. Each person should have the ability to you create conditions that people can thrive on, and then you incentivize them for participating in these conditions. Like you say, like Botswana's doing, allocating resources to people going to school, healthcare, like infrastructure building, like public policy, even monetary policies. We have the ability to decentralize them to allocate resources amicably and equally. But are we ready to build that infrastructure? And who has a say for this? Because it's definitely not going to happen with democracy.
Picture this. You're an inspiring computer science major. You have the 4-year degree program finished. You get out, start looking for work within the job market, and then you realize that there's no jobs. What you end up doing is you become an Uber driver because you realize that that piece of paper that you were chasing was actually worthless. The reality is, most institutions are behind. HeliCode solves this problem by teaching you on-demand Web3 tech skills in a short duration of time and links you to employment with our job placement services. And the best part is, you can work remotely. Find out more at helico.xyz. And as always, see you, Space Cowboy.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And again, this is why I like the way the Sahel states are moving, because they're not
Yeah.
about democracy, you know. And they're, I promise you, in 10 years, if God forbid, hopefully they stay alive,
Yeah.
because
Please.
you know, yeah, yeah, fingers crossed. But if they're able to stay alive, and I promise you, in 10 years, they're going to be like a Dubai for Africa. I only think it's only going to take 10 years, because they have the
I think,
resources, they have the leadership, they're going to then, they're taking away the colonial schooling, they're empowering people with the right education, they're incentivizing people to come in, they're building a bank, right,
yeah.
backed by gold, which would be a
Yeah, that's
great
the
place for people, businesses to go and bank, right? So I really believe in them long term, but I don't know what you think about them specifically.
No, no, no. I just saw that actually this weekend. I was reading up on that. It's quite amazing. I think this type of things is what we need. And then I believe like that guy has a crazy plan and is ready to protect it with his life. And I think
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing we need. But I also believe Africa should have a different approach to this. We can't fight these guys with the same weapon they have because we will lose. So we
yeah,
need to fight this battle very differently. We need to fight it with a different weapon. We need to fight it with kindness. We need to fight it with love. We need to fight it with acceptance. We need to fight with ownership that's rooted not in enviness, but rooted in the ability to like, hey, I own this, but I welcome you. But make no mistake, who
yeah,
owns this? Now, this ability will allow us to take care of what we own. It's like
yeah,
Airbnb, but for like an Airbnb host. Like you don't
yeah,
you when you're there for 2 days, you feel like it's your home, but deep down,
yeah,
you don't own it. I don't like the ability where a lot of people come to Africa and because we don't have ownership to a lot of things around us, they feel like they can take it like it's theirs. Well, we
yes,
can't even have like for example, I can't go to America without paying $300 non-refundable deposit. So if they deny me with their visa, they never give me that money back.
yeah,
I think
exactly. It's
that
a business model, by the way. It's a really
you
good.
know,
They make billions of dollars off of that, by the way.
but and then they'll tell you we are a touristic country, but majority of our money goes in us applying for visas. Like
Yes,
we did not make that money back for tourism. We should say like
yes,
law, put a law in place like for everybody who gets denied, 50% of their deposit should be returned to them.
yeah,
If I'm not gonna go to your
yeah,
country, 50% of that should come back to me. Now, small things like this give you a leverage, a upper end in these situations where like, hey, I value where what you guys how you respect your country, but also I value my space as a person who's here. I value our people as the ability because the same way we extended the door for you, we're gonna extend the door back. The same gesture. Now, I think this negotiation ability is what we don't have. We don't have leverage, and we enter places to negotiate with very little leverage. It's like it's like you going to negotiate on a cross Atlantic tour, but you can't swim.
Yeah,
Like,
I
bro,
absolutely agree, and
if she
I
goes to
noticed this exactly. Yeah, I 100% agree with you because again, that's again why I keep referring back to this Web3 academy that we're building. That is
yeah,
a leverage point. That
a
is a
hundred
leverage
percent
point. If
knowledge,
we take,
but
yes, exactly.
if you take
If we take the Web3, the new layer of the internet labor market, if we able to facilitate the skill sets to be able to solve the problems on the ground, leveraging the technology, those two things in combination with also liquidity extraction, right?
yeah,
So you're
I
taking away
think
the liquidity from an opportunity from the West and bringing it back to Africa. So then the Africans have the liquidity, and then they're able to reinvest that back into the businesses through spending, consuming, or through investing into land, into businesses, and et cetera, because they'll have more working capital. But go ahead. What were you saying that you think?
I think no, I was gonna just add on the liquidity part. I think we
Yeah.
actually have the ability to have like, see if crypto has shown us anything is like social acceptance is more valuable than actual monetary. Like if we can say today we're gonna back this particular currency and we have confidence in it, it's gonna be more valuable than anything. If Africa is traded one currency, and I
Yep.
think the biggest thing we complicate a lot of things in the financial is jargons and ideologies that really miss out the point. That's why sometimes I'm very skeptical. A lot of people building in the blockchain space because I'm like, you guys are complicating something that's meant to be very simple. Like payment is settlement. That's pretty much it. Like
Yeah.
this particular apple, like whatever I have here, I was just chewing. It's only valuable if somebody who's accepting it knows they can spend it again.
Yeah.
That's what gives currency value. It's like I
Yes.
know when I have this, I can spend. If I came to your country and I gave you 10,000 shillings, the largest bill here in Tanzania, if I brought this to your country and I gave it to you, it will be worthless. But if I go
Yeah.
around my street here, this is gonna be so valuable. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
if we reverse this, just reverse engineer the same thing, like okay, so the idea here, the value here is not the it's not the note, but the acceptance point. So if we can agree, like, hey, whatever settlement, if we can have like points of settlement and points of exchange across Africa, that's an infrastructural actual solution. So you
Yeah.
realize banking and this financial institution, mobile, all like that are in Africa, their primary job should be settlements. Now, if it's easy now to introduce a new infrastructure of value, now
Yeah.
we do not think like that because we're thinking in the Western standard of mechanism of value. That's why even what's valuable in front of our eyes becomes less valuable, right? So the idea of blockchain to me is the infrastructure of value that allocates a lot of people to participate in the economy. And if we use it for that fundamental like small way of storage of value, it's easy now to say like, hey, I could have validators all over Africa. How many people have computers around you? Because you don't need that many validators for
Yes.
transactions. You don't need that many nodes. You don't need that many like collators around that you can set up a proper blockchain. So even for me, if you tell me blockchain or USDT, to me, I still feel like we don't have ownership for that. The world has
Yeah, I don't
ownership for
like
that.
you. I don't like USDT as a long-term viable solution. I prefer Bitcoin, but
Yeah,
yeah, because it's still a company. But I just think about how because here's the issue, opportunities, right? So I'm trying to solve the immediate problem right now is opportunities. I get you
yeah,
skills and I link you to opportunities immediately. Then we can get to talk about how you can take that skill and instead of just work for that opportunity, how you can create your own opportunity. But
a
before I
hundred
get
percent.
there, I need to get to, hey, you need opportunity right now. Here's an
Mm,
opportunity. Get this skill set, and I'll link you to then a company, and then you start getting liquidity. Once you have food in your mouth, you have savings. Then I can start talking to you more about, hey, uh, you saving that money into that currency is bad. Here's why. You just leveraging your skill set to work for someone else's dream is bad. Here's why. You being able to use that skill set and leverage it to create your own opportunity and create more opportunities for others on the ground is good. Here's why, right? But before I'm able to
Yeah.
get there, I first
You
need
need
to
to.
tackle the immediate problems, right? So this is
Yeah.
why we
Like.
want to tackle the immediate problems first and expand out later, because the short-minded thinkingness of an African currently right now stems from this fictitious scarcity that doesn't really exist, right?
Oh. Can I challenge you on that? I mean, not for all of
Challenge me.
Africa. But
Tell
for
me.
Tanzania, I've I had an opportunity to introduce a lot of product like microfinancing products here. So I was on ground a lot. I did this project back in 2017, 2018, was to set up the law for micro lending and microfinancing. So they're trying to pass
Yeah.
this law. So we went around the country, did a lot of things, a lot of research, and then these findings was what was used to kind of pass this law. But then I think when I was doing the reporting and was working with these guys, I noticed one thing, that was the people's ideology was never put into account. I'll give you a good scenario. Food is so cheap in Tanzania. Now stay with me. We for less than $1, like maybe 50 cents, I can eat well for the whole day. Now this is a good thing and also a bad thing, right? It's a good thing in a sense that I can have food for cheap, but it's a bad thing because it makes you complacent. It takes the hunger of development away from the people. Because if I can have my basic needs met for cheap, like why should I go and riot? Why should I go on the street? Why should I ask for my rights, bro? I just ate. I'm full. Like I didn't even have to spend $1. I've ate for the whole
Yeah.
day. So
Yeah.
my basic needs are met, because the most important thing for a human being is survival. Survival trumps everything. And I think we don't put to account that harsh environments, harsh climates in Western worlds push them to kind of even colonize us, because we are naturally good people. We don't put to account that our conditions make us good, because like, yo, I have everything, why am I fighting with you? Why do you want to colonize me, bro? Like we can all have food.
Yeah.
You see, we
Yeah.
don't naturally have this evil mindset, uh to be evil amongst our foemen, because the nature of where we are geographically located is abundant. So naturally our
Yeah.
spirit becomes abundant, our ideology becomes abundant. But that scale shifted, but our culture didn't, our conditions didn't, our environment didn't. So we do not want to have crazy ownership. We don't want to, we're not territorial people. Like we are naturally as humans, but then that need essentially for majority of us is not there, because I want to live with my
The abundance
family. I want to
mindset.
have like, yeah, I'm like, bro, like that's not important to me. Like I'm from a coastal city in Tanzania. I can sleep by the beach and wake up tomorrow and go to a mama cooking and be like, hey, I'm hungry. She'll probably give me 2 or 3 cassavas, and proper cassavas, bro, that I can push the day. And if I have another meal, my day is gone. I didn't spend a dime.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
why is this dangerous? It's dangerous when we want to innovate for bigger things, better quality, better experiences in this world that as a nation we need. So you find rallying people becomes hard because they're not hungry. Using the same example, I went to Kenya. Remember the Gen Z movement that happened? When I was in
Yes.
Nairobi, I
Of
noticed
course.
their street food is very bad. Their conditions of living, like just day to day, is very poor compared to we're neighbors with them. Like, and I was like, yo, if I like this, I would go on the street again. Like, I would join you guys. I get it, but I noticed my people would never. And also another thing, my people in Tanzania will leave like, because everything is so simple to get in terms of necessity. So we leave not paycheck, like payment per payment. Like I need 10K here, I'm gonna do a small job here, get paid here, pay this job, pay this bill. So I'm moving, like paying for things as I go, not to save, not to accumulate, more like to get by. So
Yeah.
stopping my day to go and fight for my rights, I've missed a fool, like that messes up my entire trajectory. So
Yeah.
what is the need for me to come together and fight for a right, while me doing that will make sure I lose everything I have? You see? So we don't have the luxury to we have the luxury to eat, but we don't have the luxury to fight for better quality, because that would require sacrifice. And not a lot of us are in a position to sacrifice for now to get to tomorrow. So we do everything for right now. So it's not scarcity in the sense of like I don't have, it's scarcity in the sense like I cannot sacrifice, like physically I cannot sacrifice for tomorrow. I can sacrifice for now, like
Yeah.
before the sun goes down. But if the sun goes down, I didn't get what I want. Tomorrow, I'm not coming back here, because tomorrow
Yeah.
the need becomes more greater. And 2 days, imagine like you, if I was a leader of Tanzania and people went on a riot, I'll just wait it out. I'll just chill.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just give them 5 days. They can't reach 5 days. And the
Yeah.
sad part, our leaders know this. And they're like, yeah, no one is gonna, even people in Tanzania, they're like, yo, no, there's no way I'm gonna go to the street and walk for my right, bro. That's who's gonna listen to you? Like, But innately, the reason why is because we have a false abundance of security to make us less inclined to sacrifice the present to get the future, because our mindset cannot foresee, like, hey, there could be a better 2 weeks or a year ahead. Let me sacrifice right
Yeah.
now. It's like, no, no, no. We have enough to just go around today. And we wake up tomorrow, we work for what is enough to go around today, you know? So
Well,
yeah, I would challenge that idea of scarcity into more like, what does scarcity mean for somebody whose natural environment provides for them the basic necessity? You
yeah.
see?
Stay tuned for part 2, and as always, see you, Space Cowboy.